when we met, we were both working L&D, P&U, right?
Right.
And I think we were kind of like, we had both this indoctrination level, and where I was like this, you were like this.
Uh-huh.
You're like, there's still hope, and I was like, nah, nah.
Yeah.
And so it kind of was weird to think about. Like when I reflect back on it, I'm like, how did we even become friends with such
Yeah.
opposite ideals?
Yeah.
And I think we kind of play like a yin and yang type deal in
Yeah.
that regards.
Yeah. So, they say opposites attract, and I can be very serious, very like task oriented, very like focused on the mission at hand. And I know you can too. Like I've experienced it, but
Don't tell people that, okay?
but I think you tend to react to situations like when it's like life or death. Like that's when you're like ready to go. When things don't need to be taken seriously, like you're there to have a good time. And for people with my personality, like we like comic relief, and so you provided a lot of comic relief. You still do, and I appreciate that. Laughing like helps with your like dopamine receptors and all these things. So and you also like help keep things in perspective too. Like if you're constantly surrounding yourself with people that think the same way you do, you're always going to think like this is how it is. But when you start having conversations with people who have like had different experiences or see things differently, and if you're actually listening to them, it kind of shapes your thoughts to maybe like start to realize like, okay, maybe this isn't as great as I thought it was, or as important or as serious as I thought it was. And so I think like the conversations that we would have on night shift also like helped our like formulate our friendship. And
we were like Bible study. I was like, why am I being pressed like this?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
that was good
times. So what do you think was like the factor in life that made you so receptive to that kind of behavior? Because even at that point in my time, it was something that was very new to me, was this concept of like listening to reply, not listening to talk. I think a lot of people in conversations will listen just so that they can hear you finish talking so they can talk.
Right.
Whereas with like you, and I mean, we obviously have these conversations too, the conversation carries much better because I'm listening to reply and then give something to that.
So you mentioned earlier that you dealt with bullying when you were younger. And so as an Air Force brat, we moved every 2 to 3 years. And I was bullied a lot. Like it was really hard going to a new school, and a new private school at that, where the class sizes are smaller. People tend to, have known each other a lot longer. And so I feel like I try to take every experience that I have in life, especially negative experiences, and remember how they made me feel. And I tell myself, like, I don't want to make other people feel that way, as best as I can. And I don't want to feel that way again. And so I remember what it feels like when, you're talking to somebody, it's something that's important to you, and their response just kind of like falls flat. Like you can tell they weren't listening, or they try to one up you by telling like a personal story of their own. And so I guess to answer your question, I remember like how awful that makes me feel. And I don't want people to feel that way when they're talking to me or bringing like concerns to me, or just having like a normal conversation.
No, I agree. It's interesting that you said that, like, where like you tell them something and it falls flat, right? I just seen this video the other day by it's from Alex Hamanzi, and he talks about the kind of friends that you should keep, and he says that they should do. He's like, if you meet these kind of people, these are the people that you should keep in your life, and it's people that when you come to them with good news, they celebrate for you. When you come to them with bad news, they're understanding of that. And in both of those situations, they never tried to relate it back to them.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty legit. And I feel like you do that very well. I try to do that for others.
I will be honest, like in the past, the last point you made as far as they don't try to take an experience that you're sharing and then bring forth their experience. I used to do that because I thought that was a way that people felt they could relate to me better and like, hey, look, we have this similar experience that we share. I kind of understand what you're going through. I didn't realize that that makes people feel like I'm not listening to them or being dismissive of them. And so yeah, I through my own like experiences in life and like some hard things that I've gone through recently, I started realizing like, you know, it actually doesn't feel good when people try to, you know,
Trying to
relate.
like
It's like
sympathize with you.
I just want you to hear me, and I don't really want a solution, or I don't really, you know, want to hear how you got through something unless I'm asking, which most of these situations I'm not. Yeah, so I agree with that statement, and I would also say something that I've learned recently is like, you know, and maybe you've heard of this, people will be in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I agree with that so much because there's people that, you know, at the time in the place where I was and I knew them and we worked together really well. It was awesome. But like sometimes people just go their separate ways, but or sometimes you guys stay connected and friendships like continue to grow. So
It's insane. My mom taught me that when I was like so young, and to this day, when I'm encountering with people, it's like at the very forefront of my thought process. I'm going, is this person a reason, season, or
yeah,
lifetime? And maybe it's to a point where it's obsessive. Like it may be kind of, I don't want to say it's detrimental, but I definitely do. Like I will evaluate people and be like, is there a reason why I'm talking to you? Are you here for, or do I only have to talk to you for a little bit? Or like, is there going to be something that I get out of this?
yeah,
And, you know, like a perfect example was like, I talked to Whitney the other day, and it's crazy. I mean, we don't even live in the same area. I don't talk to her on a regular basis, but she's definitely one of those friends that's in my life for like definitely for a lifetime, because all this time has elapsed between like talking, and we used to hang out all the time.
Yeah.
But it was like I could talk to her and it was just like it was like we were like back to like being like how it used to be, and I'm like, okay, this is like a lifetime friend. This one's gonna be around
and
for a
that's
while.
great. That's great to have.
And so to kick it back to you, I want to ask this. So we talked about the perspective changing, your reason, your motivators for like why you joined the Air Force. What is like now when you're looking at this, and especially when you talk to people, what is your motivator for like having this conversation with somebody? Like, because I feel like it could have been very easy for you to just like dismiss me like in all my complaining. So what was the reason that you were like, I'm gonna help this guy out, like I'm gonna give him my 2 cents?
Well, I think I recognize that you genuinely were interested in what I had to say. You're open to any advice that I had to give, whether you're going to listen to it or not. Like that's for you to decide. And I will say that I regret being as serious as I was early on in my Air Force career. I think it really impeded opportunities for me to mentor individuals. I know that I wasn't always the most approachable person. And so my experience having gotten out of active duty and going into the Guard really helped me kind of shift my mindset to like, okay, I don't need to take this that serious. Like it's the med group, it's part-time, nobody's dying.
Facts.
If I have people coming to me with questions, like I can take time to, you know, sit there and talk to them and answer questions or ask questions in return. Because honest, like in reality, like that's what's most important. You know, I
To
think
you
some,
personally.
yeah, I think, yeah, to me personally, but I think overall, I think, you know, remembering to take care of other people is most important. I think people get really caught up in prestige and in the military, like awards and decorations and like how they can, compete. Um, but at least from the guard perspective, like we're supposed to like deploy together. And if you're always competing with your teammates when you're downrange, like if you have like unresolved conflicts or they don't feel like you really have their back or you're listening to them or you care about the hard things that they're going through, like it's gonna be really hard for you guys to function at 100, 110% when shit hits the fan. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the like shift for you to take on that perspective? I know for me, I don't want to say it's like a pride thing for you, but I know for me, I was very like, once I came in and I got that pride, and I guess this goes back to me just being like prideful.
Yeah.
It took me going to the ER to like understand that even if you are the hot shit, you don't telling everybody doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? People don't need you to act like you're the hot shit and to tell them that you're the hot shit. They just need you to be the hot shit for the team. And then on the personal level, you need to be like personable, because I could be a great medic, but if I'm an asshole, my teammates are gonna let me sink when it comes down to time to do skills. And if I'm the guy that's always saying like, oh, you're not doing that right, or I could do that better, or like get out of the way, let me do it, then I basically burn my own ship. And it took me going into the ER to get checked, and for people to be like, hey man, like,
yeah,
cool, but that's not like not cool.
So you're asking what caused me to
step down from the commander stall that I knew to like Elizabeth Higginbotham that
I think my personal experiences in active duty where I was trying to make a difference, like I felt like I had a lot to offer and contribute. When I felt and realized that wasn't really appreciated, that it was a lot harder to make positive change or make bad situations better, or there were people that same rank as me, getting paid the same as me, they're like awful at their job, they do the bare minimum, and there's just really no incentive for me to be doing all these things that I thought were good. I needed to find something else that was meaningful in order to like stay motivated and to like continue to do my job well. Otherwise, my patients were going to start to suffer. And so, taking the meaningfulness of like promoting and awards away and like start shifting it on the people that I was working with, and just like trying to be the best nurse I could be, friend I could be, and realizing that I don't know, like
it's okay. Yeah, I get it. So let me ask you this: has like faith like always been big for you? Like I know with your brand, like you're very faith oriented brand. Has that been something that's been huge for you, and like has that been a proponent for you in?
I would say that when I was growing up, our religion and faith was important, but it didn't become as important or as like as much of like the center of how we were raised until I was probably like 12, 13. And I was like really resistant to it. Like you grow up most of your life and things are kind of like, I don't know, like lukewarm or like not as big of a deal. And then all of a sudden your parents are like, hey, we're going to start doing this more and this more. And I was like, not about it. I don't like being told what to do. And so that started, a long time ago. And then like, as I started to learn more and practice my faith more, I realized like how fulfilling it was to have something else to turn to when things got really hard. And even through like my military career or personal experiences, when things have gotten really hard. It's been one of the only things that has not let me down. You know, I like had some different coping mechanisms that they weren't like terrible, but they weren't necessarily like the best for somebody. Um, and you know, turning toward my faith has brought me a lot of meaning. I would say God's never let me down in the hard things. Sometimes things don't happen as quickly as I would like, but I've realized like if I'm open, I I start to see like, okay, maybe there's something else I can do, or something else I can pursue, or someone else that I can foster a relationship with. Um, and so, yeah, that was one of the motivators for me starting my small business, and it was just um, something to kind of have like a creative outlet after, like, you know, I wasn't finding a lot of fulfillment being a full-time nurse or being in the military, and I'm like, this brings me a lot of joy and I find meaning in this. So I'm just going to start like creating these things, and I'll post them on Etsy and see how they do, and now it's doing pretty well.
It's booming, bro.
Yeah, so
it's
yeah,
booming.
it's
I
exciting.
feel like, I mean, I follow your page like as a personal level, but every time it comes up in my feed, I like have to remind myself it's not a Target ad. I'm like, no, like this is my friend that I follow, but it's just like it's really good, and I see it, and I'm like, man, this looks so legit. Like, and I see all of the like comments and the feedbacks and the likes, and I'm just like, dude, I see it. I'm so proud. I'm like, that's so sick. I'm so proud of her for doing that.
Thank
And
you.
it's interesting, like how you said, like you kind of got shifted into the faith, and then you've obviously used that going on in your life and in your career. I've been trying to understand my spirituality more, and I'm not like, you know, I was raised like in a Christian household, so like I understand like the concept of God and the story. You know, I've dated a female who was Jewish, and she explained, like, she actually gave me an understanding of like the Jewish faith, and I understood that. You know, I've read like here and there like sparse parts of different religions and their ideology and how they view God. Nothing really ever like sticks out for me. That's just like, that's the definite correct answer. But I do believe that in and of ourselves, we have to believe that we are intending to be good, right? And that the outcomes of life are just the variables that we can't control. It's been something that I'm trying to like get better at. I know I talked to you a lot about it. But the other thing that I wanted to mention and like bring up to you was that we were talking about how, or kind of how you mentioned it, like I'm trying to think of how to word this so that I can like relay it back to you to expand on. But essentially, when you're a good person, people can take advantage of that, and they will take advantage of that. And I don't know if it's with malintent or whatever. Those, you know, those are like the like maybe the semantics of it all.
Yeah.
But for me, when I feel that I've been like wronged or like taken advantage of, I feel this. I feel like when I get slighted, it's just like it's so hard for me to not be like, all right, you burned me, I'm going to light your world on fire.
Yeah.
You know? Do you feel like you have a good control of that? Because like I feel like you've been you're very cognizant of when you're being taken advantage of, and you're very like, you'll put your foot down and be like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But you do it in such a professional manner. Like how do you do you?
Yeah. So I'll admit that I'm not always professional about it. Definitely when I'm around certain people, I am more professional, but like, you know, I've said before, there's some people that just know how to push your buttons and the filters kind of come off and you're not as professional. As far as, you know, being good and not trying to be taken advantage of, I think that it's important that we always assume incompetence versus what's it, like insolence or
like malintent.
Yeah. And so that's something I've been trying to do more. But I'm also, I'll admit, like it's hard for me to forgive. And so if somebody's like wronged me once or maybe multiple times, like I've given them another chance, I'm not as quick to let them into my life or um uh share with them like personal things, or I don't really know if that's like answering your question. Like,
Yeah.
again, I think as far as like sticking up for myself and putting my foot down, it's amazing the experiences that you have in your childhood and how they formulate like how you act as an adult. So again, I moved around a lot. It was really hard to make friends. You know, girls can be really mean to girls, and after a while, I realized like I'm not that desperate for friends. I don't like being treated this way. I know that I have something to offer, and I bring value to wherever I go. And if people aren't going to appreciate that or be respectful, then I don't need to give them my time. Like I'll do my job well,
Mm-hmm.
because other people are affected by me if I don't do my job well. But yeah, I think it's just like being aware that you don't deserve to be treated poorly, and then also like reflecting, like, am I doing anything wrong to maybe like set this person off? Is it my attitude or my tone, or did I say something to them that they got offended by that maybe I didn't mean to offend them? So I think being open to like self-reflection is like, is it me? That do I need to work on anything? I think that's kind of important too.
Yeah. And I feel like I've been doing that hard. I feel like I'll get slighted. I'll be like, you know what, man? Like, I've gotten better at
Yeah.
not saying fuck you to people,
Yeah.
and just being like, all right, hey, you know what, fine, like, do you. Um, but I'll notice it too. It'll just be like this lingering, like you realize you wronged me, so why are you upset with me?
Right.
And so I'm learning to not be like the like continual jabber, because back to the
Mm-hmm.
personality thing, like I'm a debater,
Yeah.
and like you've known this about me for the longest time. Like I will talk until I'm blue in the face just to explain to you that my idea
Yeah.
is right.
Mm-hmm.
um and so learning not to like be the continual jabber, not to continue to debate, and kind of reflect back inwards and say, okay, like I was wronged in this situation, but what was the motive? Where did they come from? What's going on in their life that they
Mm-hmm.
felt like doing this to me? And in this conversation I had with Whitney, I really wish we would have done like a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a good
Yeah.
conversation. But one of the topics that we discussed was forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I was like, where is your line for forgiveness? You know?
Yeah.
And it was really deep, like a deep line, because I think once you get into like a relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
you start to your walls are down,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they know like who you are, like
Yeah,
they
you're
know like,
vulnerable.
right,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
like they know that you like don't wash your feet type stuff, like they know that
Yeah.
you like you don't brush your teeth before you go to bed. You know what I mean? They know the dirty stuff.
Yeah.
But when you get down to that level, it's hard to one be in that situation and fake it, right?
Yeah.
You can only put on a facade of who you are for so long before people can, especially at that level, before people can call you out on your shit and be like, that's not who you really
Right.
are.
Yeah.
Right? So getting down to that level, understanding somebody at that level, and then being in that realm and you get slided down there, it's like you just want to be like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
doors closed all the way out,
Right.
and you push this person completely away.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been a process of like revisiting those bridges, because not necessarily maybe have the bridges been burned,
Mm-hmm.
and I think nowadays we can say like technology,
Yeah.
burning a bridge for sure is like, hey, I'm blocking you on every social
Sure.
media platform, your number's blocked,
Mm-hmm.
you will only ever see me again as if we by chance walk into
Mm-hmm.
somebody again, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to disconnect from somebody.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like letting all of those doors just be open.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
my profile's public,
Yeah.
Like any of my exes can view my profile. I have nothing to hide.
Right.
I don't outwardly talk bad about anybody. I don't like,
Yeah.
I will not be on a public platform and be like, my ex did blah, blah, blah. And recently I've just been like trying to be more understanding too. Like, um, you know, and being open and honest and like standing on those bridges and saying, hey, like I understand that there was like a war or battle that happened here,
Yeah.
but like I'm okay.
Right.
Right? If
Yeah.
you're okay, I'm okay. Like we don't have to like hate each other because in this world nowadays, I notice that hate is perpetuated.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I don't know. What is
And
your take on
it's
that?
like presented that it'll make you feel good. Like if you get back at somebody and you feel justified in doing that, like you're going to feel so much better. And at the end of the day, maybe temporarily you felt better, but you still like feel
it goes
bad.
Against that like that spiritual
it's still
morality.
Like festering, bothering you. And it sounds like you are talking about like establishing boundaries. And some people establish boundaries differently, where to them, establishing boundaries is I'm going to block people and like cut them out of my life because maybe I don't have the skills or I don't want to waste time and energy explaining to them, you hurt me in this way and it made me feel awful and I don't want you in my life anymore. So it seems like your approach is more healthy in that you're being open, you're being clear. It kind of goes back to controlling what you can control. You can't control other people's actions. You can only control your actions. You make it clear with people that have upset you, like, I think you're only in my life for a reason or a season, you know, not forever. And I can't continue on because like some people can be emotionally and mentally draining. Like it's just not meant to work out for some relationships, and whether that's friendships or more. And it just depends really on the relationship and you know what like both people are willing to put into it, because if it's one-sided, that's also like draining, and no one is deserving of, you know, being in a relationship where they're trying to like consistently put forth the effort and you know, make themselves better, but the other person's like resistant, not willing to do some self-reflection and admit that they maybe have some flaws that they need to work on. And going back to like forgiveness is really hard. And I said earlier, like it's really hard for me to forgive, and depending on like the offense, like it can take me a long time. And I've definitely had people that I have been angry with for like years, and they probably don't even know it. I just don't make a huge effort to engage them, and but it doesn't make me feel better. It makes you feel like just
every time they come to your head, you're just like,
yeah. And so yeah, it's definitely better to clear the air when you have an opportunity. And I think that's something you learn like as you get older too. You start realizing like this isn't worth it. Like
it's not.
Like I don't like feeling this way. If I can just be brave and just like have that conversation with somebody, they might not agree, but at least I'll know I tried, and hopefully you'll feel better.
Yeah. And I think it advocates for like my personality better to be able to have a debate where it's like, hey, I disagree with you. That doesn't mean that like this has to be a war.
Sure.
And I think it gets kind of muddied up when we look at what's like fed to us, right? Because we don't see peaceful debates. We don't see
exactly. People don't know how to debate.
Right. People know how to attack.
And yeah, emotional. We bring emotion into it, and make it personal. And it's hard. It's hard to keep emotions out of discussions, especially when you disagree with somebody. I mean, like, look at social media. Emotion is like what feeds the algorithm. It's what people like keep them interested and engaged. Like a civil debate is boring, right?
I guess.
If you're a bystander watching a civil debate, I mean, like think about the presidential debates. If it's civil and everyone's like being polite and politically correct, it's kind of a snooze fest. But if somebody's like making jabs at somebody else, and inciting emotions. Like it's like, oh, what's gonna happen next?
It's like drama, man. It's drama. But it's weird. So, you know, we talked about you talked about like how to gain like followership,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
And it's like you talked about like the make the videos like controversial, right? Make them something that pops out. And so I was talking to Chisholm in the last episode, and we were talking about influence and like how powerful influence is, right?
Yeah.
Because he mentions like what's the most valuable currency? Like, what is it? He goes, it's attention. You know, there's nothing that you can't do if you don't have attention.
Yeah.
Right. So I think about that concept. You have to have somebody's attention. You have to be able to influence them. If you want to like, for me, I want to like help people. It doesn't necessarily help me help them if I attack them. Right.
Yeah.
If I coerce them, like, or try to manipulate them, that's not going to work. Right. And then I saw this video, and it was I forgot what he was on. I want to say it was the Diary of the CEO. Was the podcast they were on, where the guy goes, he's like, you don't have to be malicious. You just have to be, and this is where I think Andrew Tate is getting in fire. Yeah. Is that you have to be like, it sounds so stupid. You have to be seductive. You have to like get people to be attracted to you, and like seduction is like a like peaceful way of doing that, right? How are the Kardashians so successful? They can command attention through seduction. They like, and it's not to.
God, well, they're playing on people's emotions.
They're playing on people's emotions. Yeah. They're like, oh, like, you know,
it's either I want to be like that, like, or I like the way this person makes me feel. And I think that as far as like social media goes, gaining followership for me, like I want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. Like I didn't start my social media business account because I'm like, I want thousands of followers. It is something that you kind of focus on, but the people that kind of have like the same line of thought as you, they will follow you, no problem, or they will find you and stick with you. And the people that maybe like you interest them initially, but you know what you have to say or offer is not something that they really care about, they'll leave, and that's okay. Like, yeah. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So like you can put all these things out there to help people, but ultimately it's their decision if they want to help themselves and like listen to what you have to say. Yeah.
It's just interesting. I think it's like, you know, drawing those lines, like the leading the horse to water, you can't make him drink. It's just a very interesting like process, and I'm really trying to just like gather as much like insight on that, because I think the hardest part in like being on this path is there are very few people that are like, I want to say this metaphorically, like ahead. It's like there's this gray zone between like the top and like where we're at, where like the top like candle distributors, they're not pitching you the secrets like, hey dude, like they follow this exact path right here and you're gonna hit your goals, and your goal may be different from where they're at. And so it's so hard, and that's what I was telling you, is like I just want to make sure that I'm gathering as much information on anything and everything that kind of pertains to something that I'm interested in, so that I could be like at least like somewhat well versed in what I'm talking about. So I brought this up with Chisholm, and so I guess you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you have a very like traditional view of society, right? Like you believe in very traditional values. I'm curious to know, where do you see society heading in terms of that? And like how into or how studied are you on like current events and all that?
I wouldn't say I'm like too like super like studied. And I think it depends on like where you're getting your information from too. You look on social media and it looks like the whole world's going to like to crap. It's just very overwhelming and depressing. But then and also like in your own social circles, depending on who you surround yourself with, you could be in like your own echo chamber where you're like surrounding yourself with tons of people that agree with you, and you're like, everything's fine because like all these people that I hang out with are doing the same thing I'm doing, and they agree with what I'm doing, and for the most part you think like the majority of people think the way you do. So I think it's hard to say. I think different groups of people want us to believe that things are going different directions.
Yeah.
And I think like the best you can do is just like worry about your own house and like yourself, and staying on the path that you feel is best for you and your family. Yeah, I as far as like where the world's going, I don't know, there's some scary things in my opinion that I read about in the news, some concerning things, but it's happened before. You have to read history. You have to remember history.
I know. That's what Chisholm said too.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So. It's like these conversations all kind of start to sound the same. Like the more I listen to them.
Is it boring you?
No, it's not that it's boring me. It's that perhaps maybe I need to evaluate my line of questioning. I didn't think I would get to the answer so soon, is what I would say. Like, like
I guess I gave you a kind of vague answer, like politically correct answer.
Well, no, it's not even the politically correct answer or the vague answer, but like within these 4 episodes that I've done, right? Mm-hmm. It's a lot of like the other person in that seat is saying stuff that I'm not even prompting, and it's just like I feel like I'm just getting like hit back with like the reason season in a lifetime, the horse to water, like there's some other stuff that you said in there that I'm just like, dude, that stuff I say all the time, and it's such a weird, it's like such a weird realization.
Yeah, so it sounds like you are surrounding yourself with people that think similar to you,
right?
We just like have some slight differences that keep the friendship interesting.
Yeah.
So,
but it's even like on all of the like length of it too, because I've had friends that I've been friends with since I was 12. I've had friends that I've been friends with for the last 8 years. I have friends that I met in the last year.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I didn't tell you this incident. I'm going to tell you this after this episode about this nurse that I met. But it was crazy. I met her first time I ever met her in my life. And it was like, she was just like, boom, like hitting me with all this stuff that I was like, these are all the things that I think. How do you know this?
Yeah.
So it's crazy to me. And I am trying to, I love to do the podcast because I like to get people on and hear like what they have to say. Yeah. But it also makes me wonder now, like, what is the direction that I'm going to take this? Like where, I can't do 100 episodes of everybody going, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make a drink. Like, how do I slice this up? What are your ideas? What do you think?
I guess like, me, I'm more structured. So come up with like an actual like topic, and like these are the things we're gonna address.
Okay.
And yeah, if you come up with like some controversial stuff to go over, I think that's probably how things stop being the same when you start talking more about controversial stuff, which makes everyone a little uncomfortable.
I'm all down for it. It's right now it's me and like myself watching these videos.
I think controversy and knowledge are things that people like to listen to. So like I know for me anyways, like the podcasts I listen to are like news and things that help provide knowledge, like stuff that I want to learn more about as far as like, health and wellness or whatever. And so I don't know, just like having different topics.
Do you listen to a non-biased media source?
I feel like all media sources are biased. Like there's really there's ones that claim that they're.
I think what is it?
I try to listen to like fact base where they're just like, they might, you know, have their own take on the facts, but for the most part, they're like, this is what happened, this is when it happened, and then they might be like, and this is why this is dumb. But
like NPR, I feel like is a very that one. I think they're pretty in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Really?
Yeah.
What? I feel like every time I put up a NPR, like the little 5-minute news, it's like, I'm Lakshmi Shea today in Russia.
They sound middle of the road, but yeah.
Which side do you think they lean more to?
I think they lean more to the liberal progressive side.
Liberal progressive
I think
side.
you also need to look at who are the sponsors and like who's funding things.
So let me ask you this: you do post some very controversial stuff on your page. How does that feedback go?
So here's the thing: my social media, like business page, like it is targeted for a certain niche of people.
Yeah, like suburban mothers,
or like, you know, it's like it's a faith-based business. So honestly, like, I'm not super concerned if what I post or share is something that people don't agree with, because they'll either unfollow me or they might say something that, you know, opposes what I'm posting. And that's one of the things that I've really liked about my business, is that I'm not trying to be like apolitical or like middle of the road. Like, I'm very clear, like, this is what my business stands for, this is what I believe, and if you don't agree with it, like, that's fine. Like, you can go shop somewhere else or you can go follow someone else. And honestly, for me, that's been really freeing, having been in a job where keep your opinions to yourself. Like, and that's good to an extent as far as professionalism is concerned, because, you know, sometimes if you overshare with people, like, what you believe, and they don't agree with you, that can also like hurt like the work, you know, environment and being a team. But now that I have the freedom to do the opposite, and I'm not like intentionally like trying to poke anybody in the eye and like start arguments. Like, sometimes I'll just like post very like I think normal reels. Like, I sell candles. I sell candles, and
the candles are really good.
And sometimes people just come out of the blue and they'll start going off on my religion in a reel or a post that's about a candle. And so I'm not like hunting for it. And again, like, I'm of the mindset that I'm not going to really change anyone's mind over social media. So most of the time I don't even really engage or debate, because it's not, again, worth the time or energy. Like, they're angry, they're going to say what they're going to say, they don't know me. And if I say anything back trying to be like, hey, actually, this is what I meant by this, or this is what I believe, they're gonna be like, no, you didn't. Like, so it's really just
they know what you said better than you know
it. So it's not worth it.
It's interesting though, because then like essentially you're like picking a side to kind of be on here in that regards, right? Like,
well, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm picking a side. It's what I believe.
And that's, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because it comes down to you were talking earlier about how like it's okay to have your opinion challenged, because then you have better perspective. It's also the other part of it too, is like how much are you a catalyst in that like toxic media machine, right? Like, I
think it goes back to intent. Like, what's my intent? Your intent with
my
intent is not to like
doing it to like spark anger, or are you just sharing what you feel, and then people?
And sometimes, you know, when you have disagreements with people or debates, it can cause you to, you know, go back and do more research and be like, oh, maybe I got this wrong, or no, I didn't get it wrong, but this is a better way for me to explain it. That's maybe more respectful.
Are you good about that?
To some extent. Like, when I have conversations in person with people, again, when it's over social media, like I had done it in the past where like they would say something, I would like go get the information, but it was just like this back and forth. Like, and I'm like, it's not worth it. You know, face-to-face conversations are always going to be so much different than trying to convince somebody or have a conversation with somebody over social media.
It's true. I just think it's interesting because I do know that you have to kind of, and this goes back to the influence thing, you kind of have to play both sides. You have to be a bit of like poke the bear, but also be like, hey, like, here's a little treat for you, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to study what I would say are like the greats, right? Like the people who are spreading the message that I want to spread. I mean, that's the name of the podcast, is Say It Louder, right?
Right, yeah.
There's people that are up on the top that I can hear what they're saying.
Sure.
And I can read all of their knowledge. I can watch all their podcasts.
Yeah.
And then but it's up for me to, 1, to digest it, and then 2, to process it, and then 3, to implement it. Right. So Chris Williamson, he's on the Diary of the CEO episode. He was talking about, how many viewers do you have? You have 1 million, 2 million subscribers. Of that 2 million subscribers, I'm spreading this message. 95% of them agree with me. Not going to do anything about it. 5% of them agree with me, are going to look into it, then they're not going to do it. 1% will look at what I'm saying, look into it, and then implement it.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to be that 1% in my pursuits.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to work that path, because it's such a difficult path. Do you feel that challenge, or like what is the goal?
Well, so my goal isn't really to change anyone's mind or convince them of what I believe on social media. My goal is to sell products. And the way my products are designed, yes, I'm a faith-based small business. What I wanted them to be was subtle. I didn't want to be like in their face about like what I believe.
Like those candles that my mom used to buy with like the Virgin Mary, and it's like, like you're not trying to hit it like that hard.
Yeah, so it's enough to maybe like pique someone's interest. Like, oh, what does this mean? Like maybe I'll go look it up, and then maybe they like do research or go down this rabbit hole. But it's not. My intention was never to be like
spread faith.
This is to evangelize in a way, but not to shove it down someone's throat. Like, this is what I believe, and you should too, and this is the way to go. Because like nobody's going to want to listen to somebody who's like trying to force like beliefs.
Right, because you were talking about like switching to not switching, but also creating a product that isn't so.
Right. So I mean.
So why do that then if your intent is and.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. So,
you know what I mean? Because like what you're saying is that you're making this product for people who like share your belief. If they believe what you believe in,
well, it's not just share my belief. My products are some of the few products out there made with non-toxic ingredients. I don't use any synthetic fragrances. I use essential oils to scent all my products. I use like wooden wicks for my candles. So there's so many. Yeah, they are crackling wooden wicks, so they sound like a little fireplace. So I'm like kind of reaching that market as well, where people who have done the research and know that synthetic fragrances can be bad for you, that some cotton wicks have lead in them, that paraffin wax isn't the most healthy wax to be burning in your house. So there's that aspect of it, along with the faith aspect. And while I might have some products that say like anxiety relief or stress relief or headache relief, where it would appear like, oh, this isn't faith-based at all. The name of my business is on the candle. It is in Latin. If you know that or not, that's like up to that customer. So so the faith aspect's still tied to the name. And then every time I send out an order, I do put like little cards in with whatever product they purchase that is tied to something religious. So they'll get some exposure whether they want to or not. They'll either take those cards.
Take this little spoonful.
Yeah, and again, it's like not shoving it down their throat. Like they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, cool, and they'll read it, or they'll like throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like spend too much time or money on it, because I figure like people will either hold on to this or they'll throw it away. And like, yeah, so.
Yeah. I do. I see what you're saying, and it is a in that regard, it is a way to like
Mm-hmm.
play both sides, right?
And
Because
you say that like it's like I'm trying to be deceptive,
well, no,
but I'm
no,
not.
I'm not. You're not. Not you're being deceptive, but I guess I just wanted to like kind of
Yeah.
get you in your own words to say like, yes, I do am like playing like this
Yeah.
field because you cannot always like play to the right, play to the right, play to the right. Like
Sure.
sometimes you gotta play in the middle, sometimes you gotta play on the
Mm-hmm.
left, right? Like
Yeah.
and so like another controversial topic like is like Andrew Tate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with what's
yeah.
going on with him.
So like he's like he was like the most Googled man on the
Mm-hmm.
planet. It's like his claim to fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he gets these, they pull these clips of him saying this like outlandishly like misogynistic
Yeah.
like shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was super funny, like because like the YouTube algorithm just like feeds you like reels,
Yeah.
right? So like I watch Chris Williamson, Jordan Peterson, Diary of a CEO. Like I
Mm-hmm.
watch all these guys who talk about like like hey, if you want to be a man, like this is the way to be
Sure.
better. And then there'll be stuff like Fresh and Fit that gets jived into there. You
Yeah.
click one Fresh and Fit video because it's like these guys are targeting these 19 to 23-year-old girls who like their whole opinion is like I don't really need a man.
Yeah.
So then they like target an interview on them.
Yeah.
They bring in Andrew Tate. Now Andrew Tate's on the panel. Next thing you know, you're getting feed Andrew Tate
Oh,
real
sure.
stuff,
Yeah.
right? So like that's like explain how
Yeah.
the algorithm works.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny, like one reel came up and it was an interview that he had done with BBC, in which this lady comes to his house and she's like interrogating him. She's like, "You've made misogynistic claims. You've said this, da 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 da," and he's like, "Yeah, those are clips from videos." He's like, "I can pull clips from this video
Yeah.
and make you sound like misogynist."
Yeah.
And it was like it cuts and then it's like starts playing a second segment, and the second segment is her audio clipped to make her sound like misogynistic, and it's like smooth, and you're reading it and I'm like, wow, okay, maybe he is like getting
isn't Andrew Tate the guy that said he's like waiting for the one, or he can't give his heart away but to like one person, but then he like sleeps around with all these women and like
I don't know. I don't
I'm wondering if I'm thinking about the same.
He's the bald dude.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking about somebody else, but
oh yeah, I mean, so like, and I don't like read into him, but I've seen like his interview with Tucker, what's his name, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And I like started watching it and it seems like kind of interesting. Like they're talking about this case that he's been arrested in Romania for. And he's like explaining his charges and I'm like listening to it and I'm like, dude, I thought he was like sex slave, like sex trafficking.
Yeah, I think this is the same guy I'm talking about.
And so like he explains the charges. I mean, I haven't researched it on my own, so obviously he could say one thing.
Yeah.
But they're like Tucker Carlson is like, so I read into your charges and it sounds like you're being arrested for, they think you're making girls do TikTok dances for money.
Yeah, so I think what actually happened from what I heard was that he would get girls to fall for him and he would take them back to his place. They'd have sex and then he would have recorded it and they didn't know. And there was some other like blackmail manipulation going on. And so yeah, I didn't do a lot of research into it either because I'm like, this guy sounds like a scumbag. I have other things that I want to listen to. So
it's just interesting. And so like, yeah, like, like you're saying this like sex scandal stuff because they said like, what is it called? The like honeypot or Loverboy.
Oh, Loverboy. Okay.
Method. And it's just like, it's interesting because I see all this like controversy with him, and then I've also seen what he's saying to like his core audience outside of the like misogyny and stuff like that. He's like trying to motivate men. He's like saying like, stop being lazy, stop watching porn, stop playing video games, stop living in this fantasy world, like go be a man. But he's a
hypocrite, I think that's what the issue is.
Well, and it's like that's the thing that sucks is that like he has a really good message, but then he gets like blasted by all this like other shit.
And I think that's like what's really hard when you put your faith in a man or a woman or like a person. and I'm not talking about like a religious faith, but you're like looking up to somebody, and we're imperfect and we all have our flaws, and like this person that you're looking up to as a role model, and then like you find out like they're doing all these things that are like contrary to the message that they're pushing, and it kind of like rips the rug out from under you, because you're like, I've been listening to you and I've been trying to do all these things you said, but you don't even do them.
Right.
And you're kind of like, I looked up to you, kind of like
it shatters his image, and I'm just like, this is such a shitty thing, because I do firmly believe that like masculinity needs a mascot. Sure. And and like Jordan Peterson was the first, like, I guess, like, guy in that field that I started looking up to, and I started looking up to him. It was through the controversy, because it was like people were trying to cancel him, and I'm like, what did this guy say that people are trying to cancel him for? And it was like he was reviewing like his 12 rules of life thing, and like I don't know, somebody came to his like his conference or his speech that he was doing, and they were basically saying, they're like, you're a misogynist because you're telling people to do this, and I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, he doesn't make any sense. Yeah, he was a professor in Canada for like the longest time, and he would, you know, record all his lectures and post them online, and he started getting like lots of traction and huge following, especially from young men. And then you'd have, and they're all very fact based. Like I think he's a psychologist, or his background's in psychology.
I think he's a psychologist, because they're saying that his license is being like in question to be revoked now.
Sure.
I was like,
I don't know. I think that's unfortunate for people that, you know, speak in opposition to what some people want to hear, as they find ways to silence you, which I think, you know, is kind of sad. Like people with different opinions and beliefs should be able to, like, you know, share what they have to say. But I do agree with a lot of Jordan Peterson's points, which I don't think is like really common for like a lot of females today. But I also think it's like really easy, like, because you see a lot of his clips on social media, to take what he says out of context, because so many people, and it could be like something he says, or like, I don't know, a political figure, or like a movie star or whatever. It's just like a 6-second clip. Like, you have to go back and watch the whole interview or the whole lecture to get the context.
Yeah.
So, and that's really unfortunate. Like, people get all bent out of shape.
But it's the world we live in. I mean, like, what was it? Like Fast and Furious 10 set a record for the most amount of clips, because they would cut their scene every 60 seconds because like people's attention span is no longer than 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And like you were telling me, like, you have to have like, I've never seen this side, because I have my podcast set up so I could see.
Sure.
And it's crazy. It's like, it'll say like 600 views, and then you look on it, and it's just like, I'm like, so it's like 600 clicks, but maybe like 10 people saw this through to the end. And I'm like, dude, it's 60 seconds, bro. Like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, and these are all things that I've learned over the last 2 years of having a business, with like my primary marketing being through Instagram, and just like learning what works and what doesn't work, what will keep people interested. And it feels a little shallow. Like, I'm not trying to be shallow, but it's kind of like, how can you get people to, how can you spread your content via the algorithm, get people to your page? So for me, it's a business, so people will maybe want to buy products from me, and like then word of mouth, like, share with people. And so your goals are a little different than my goals. Like, you're not trying to monetize.
Not trying to monetize, but still gain the followership. I think the game needs to be played the same way regardless.
Yeah. So really, like, social media is a great opportunity. Like, there's a lot of positives and negatives to it, and unfortunately, how we would like to put our message out there is kind of, you know,
it's like the underdog way.
We kind of have to play by the Instagram algorithms game in order to like really get stuff going and
but
I mean, if you can get people to your page and you have your YouTube link on there and they're interested in your 6-second clips, then maybe they'll go to your YouTube page and watch your full video, or
hour-long
listen to you on Spotify or wherever you end up on. But you got to get people interested first.
Yeah. No, thanks. I appreciate having you on. This has been like a good conversation. I like kind of seeing your perspective and getting that, because we do view the like world differently.
Yeah.
And we have different life events that go on, but
yeah, and I think that's okay. I think that's what makes the world go round. And yeah, it's important. Like, you don't want everyone to think the same, because then it would be boring. And that's something that I've learned, is like, things really can't be black and white. So many different experiences that people have dealt with that can increase your perspective, and you can learn from them, and so.
Yeah, I think the biggest part that I liked out of this, to take away from this, was the forgiveness aspect. I'm trying to be, and we talked about barriers. And we talked about boundaries.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like trying to think of like better words for it, but maybe it's like it's the effort is in vain. But there are porous and rigid boundaries. Boundaries that you cannot have crossed, and there's boundaries that you're like tolerant of letting them be crossed. And I'm trying to like make my boundaries like porous, all of them porous. I'm trying to get to the point where it doesn't bother me, to the point where I'm like losing myself over it.
Sure.
Maybe I
think it's more complicated than that, though. I think there's so many more factors that go into how we feel about something than just like, this is my personality and I can handle it. There's like outside stressors, like hormones, health, sleep, diet.
I'm gonna hit you with this one real quick. You ready?
Okay.
All right. You're a big believer in faith, right? Guess who had the most porous boundaries of them all?
Jesus.
Right? Yeah, he had the most porous boundaries.
I know. He was also God made man. Like, we are just man.
We try to like, that's what the religion says, right? It's like to live your life in the image of God, right? Like,
he had some boundaries, though.
He forgives all.
He does. He does.
Maybe.
And I guess that's why we strive to be like him, but we have to remember we're imperfect, and that's why it's hard. Yeah. So as long as you keep trying and you're trying to make yourself better, I think you're on the right track, versus being like, nope, this person's dead to me.
Yeah.
Nope. And like, yeah, it is difficult. Like, I have, it's definitely been something that I've had to work on. Like, it's really easy to just cut people out, and then you don't have to deal with them anymore. Is it the right thing to do? Not really.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like we both watched each other kind of like change over these past few years. But I think it's for the better. I think we're both. I hope so. I think we're both killing the game right now. So what are your imparting words of wisdom that you want to leave future me and future Elizabeth with?
Oh gosh. I just feel like the older I get, the less I know. And I really think, like, when you're younger, you're naive about a lot. And then through certain experiences, we become bitter. And then as you get older, supposedly you get wise. And maybe part of getting wise is you realize how much you really don't know. And I think if I could say anything, it was like, continue to be open to learning, and like, and open to other people's perspectives, because as soon as you like close off and you think you know everything, there's no more room for growth. And I think it's like, through being open to growth and growing, that we can get better, that we can help others. Because if you and I still like believed or acted the way we did when we first met, we probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. We probably wouldn't be open to a lot of the things that we have to share with each other. So yeah, I think being open-minded. And that doesn't mean you have to be like, you have to change what you believe, but just like, listening to what other people have to say.
That's good. I like that a lot. Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
I'm glad we did this.
Me too.